Neil McCabe on the line with us, political director of Gravis Insights, Florida-based pollster, columnist with townhall.com. GravisInsights.com is the website. Neil, welcome back.
Glad to be with you, Tom.
Hey, a mutual friend, Little Bird, last night told me that you might be moving back to Washington, D.C.?
Absolutely. I will be joining One America News Network starting August 17th.
How cool is that? Well, I look forward to having you in person in the future, assuming that your new job will let you do that.
Well, that was a condition of my employment, is that I continue my relationship with Thom Hartmann's media empire.
Okay, thank you, Neil. I've got this bizarre story here. This is from Computer World, and the FCC is being sued by no fewer than 10 different lawsuits right now against the Obama administration and the FCC. One of them by Comcast against net neutrality. They all want to end net neutrality. And one of the more interesting ones is the argument that AT&T and Verizon and Alamo have made, Alamo Broadband, which is, I'm assuming, probably a Texas company. I'm not familiar with it. But they actually, in their lawsuit, they say that essentially net neutrality prohibits broadband providers from elevating their speech over others and selling the ability to prioritize some speech over other speech. In other words, here is the internet service provider, the company that is going to sell you your internet access, saying, we believe that our corporate First Amendment free speech right means that we should be able to force our content, or content that people have paid us to promote, that we should be able to shove that down the tubes so that when people log on to the internet, they automatically see our ads, they automatically see our websites, and we should be able to say, you know, there are websites that we just don't like, and we want to diminish the ability to get to them. Like, we're Comcast, very conservative family owns Comcast, a very conservative corporation. They would just really rather not let, I don't know that they would, but let's say that they wanted to say, any of the liberal sites, you're going to have to pay extra, or they're going to come to you slowly.
Think about this, Tom. I mean, just to maybe put it in another context, the South Boston St. Patrick's Day Parade was organized and put on by the Catholic war veterans, and then there were groups who were supporting behaviors and practices that were considered sinful by the Catholic Church, and they went to court basically saying, you're having a parade on public streets, we should be able to have a float in our parade, even though it's something that's completely against what you stand for. And so the question is, does the parade belong to the people, or does the parade belong to the people who run the parade?
It's the wrong metaphor, Neil.
Do the pipes belong to the people?
It's the wrong.
It's to the people who own them.
It's the wrong metaphor. Well, first of all, the pipes pass through publicly owned property, and so really the argument should, if you want to make an argument or a metaphor, you need to use common carriers. But what these internet service providers are saying is that. Well, let's say that FedEx decided that they were going to make the exact same argument. Their argument would be, we should have the right to say, if something's coming from Neil McCabe's house and we don't like his politics, we're going to charge him extra. Or if anything comes out of Neil McCabe's house and we don't like his politics, we should be able to open it, inspect it, and if we really don't like it, slow down its delivery. They can't do that because of common carrier laws. Phone companies, if they wanted to make the same argument that these internet service providers are making, because they're regulated under the same Title II of the Communications Act now, are common carriers. Right. Phone companies would be coming out saying, we don't like, or we do like, Neil McCabe or Thom Hartmann's political speech, and so we're going to listen to their phone conversations, and whenever they're talking about things that we don't like, we're going to disconnect them from time to time, or we're going to charge them $2 a minute to talk to their political buddies and only $1 a minute to talk to grandma. And that's wrong. It's illegal.
No, but one of the problems is, and I read that article, and I got kind of confused, and I think maybe I talked about it with the same bird and I think that bird was confused, is that, is there a legal vulnerability? For instance, is Alamo legally vulnerable if they carry something that's offensive or pornographic or racist. And if they're vulnerable to the content that flows over their pipes, they then have a responsibility to administer and edit and monitor. And so I think ISPs are trying to determine what their legal vulnerability is, because
there's good point. There's two sides to that. The standard for carriage for other common carriers, trucking companies, airlines, telephone companies, is reasonableness, right? If UPS starts noticing that a lot of packages are coming out of your house and they smell like pot and they're going to people all over the country, or that one of them's leaking heroin, they have a legal obligation to report that. But that doesn't mean that they have a legal obligation or even the ability to inspect every package coming out of your house. It's just if there's something suspicious. And in fact, the extent to which that they would assert the right to inspect every package coming out of your house increases their liability. It doesn't decrease it. So an internet service provider right now operating under common carrier rules, just like a phone company, if it's suspected that a phone company's user is signing people up for jihad or for child porn or something like that, if there's any evidence that becomes obvious to the phone company, then they have an obligation to report it and to do something about it. But they don't have the obligation to go looking for it, because that would be invasive. That would be a violation of common carrier rules and arguably of the Fourth Amendment.
But there's certainly an opportunistic, litigious community of lawyers who we can say, well, it's reasonable and unreasonable.
Then the best defense is to say net neutrality. Because of net neutrality, we don't have any say. We don't have the ability to control the content.
I think it's a lot easier if we move away from sort of a government Soviet-type monitoring or whatever, net neutrality. Just sort of, let's just go back.
Excuse me, net neutrality is not monitored by the government, and it has nothing to do with the Soviet Union, Neil. Come on.
Well, not yet.
Net neutrality. You're conflating the NSA spying on us with Comcast spying on us, and Comcast spies on us because they want to make a buck.
Listen, if I own a railroad, I have control of the railroad cars, and I charge you depending on how many cars you fill. And I think so that's common carrier, right?
That is correct, but you cannot charge me. And in fact, this goes back. This was what provoked the Sherman Antitrust Act. This is why the state of Ohio tried to prosecute John Rockefeller, and why he left Ohio and moved Standard Oil to New Jersey back in the 1890s, was because he cut a deal with Jay Gould, with the railroad baron, where they would transport oil from the Standard Oil monopolies at 3 cents a train car or a barrel or whatever. But if it came from one of the small independents, it was 5 cents. In other words, they had different prices depending on who you were. And so we have common carrier rules. If you own a railroad, yeah, you can say you want to ship 1,000 pounds of stuff. Here's the price, but you can't say, do you want to ship 1,000 pounds of stuff to Neil? Oh, well, if it goes to Neil, we charge extra. Or if it comes from Neil, we charge extra. Or if we don't like what's in those boxes, that 1,000 pounds of stuff, if we discover that it's Chinese-made goods instead of made-in-America goods, we're going to charge it. They can't do that.
But I think if things are better if we go back to the old days, sir.
You'd rather have the robber barons running the show.
Listen, Rockefeller saved the whale, by the way, and you never mention it.
Okay, you're right on that. Neil McCabe, political director with GravisInsights.com. Thank you, Neil.
All right, be good.